Hello, this is Tommy Franks. Welcome to the 4-Star Leadership Podcast, product of the General Tommy Franks Leadership Institute and Museum. We're here to get a view into the lives of the legacy makers, the movers and the shakers of today. Offer insights from the full spectrum of the leadership community. We'll talk to former 4-star students and explore their leadership development path. We'll work to find out what they are about today and learn from the opportunities they've made for themselves in this world. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome you to this podcast. Remember, leaders are not born, they're developed.
Hello, and welcome to episode 39 of the Core Principles of Leadership with General Tommy Franks podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jill Green, and today our guest is the current president of Oklahoma State University, Dr. Kayse Shrum. Growing up in a small town in rural Oklahoma, Dr. Shrum never imagined going to medical school until a teacher offered the suggestion as she had the highest grade in a science class. From there, Dr. Shrum never let a barrier get in her path. She went on to care for those living in rural Oklahoma as a board-certified pediatrician before her appointment as the youngest and first female president and dean of a medical school in the state of Oklahoma. Under her leadership, OSU Center for Health Sciences experienced unprecedented growth. Student enrollment doubled as the center established new academic programs designed to meet the healthcare workforce needs of Oklahoma. She led in the construction of the A.R. and Mary Louise Tandy Medical Academic Building, which is a state-of-the-art learning facility that houses Oklahoma's largest and most technologically advanced hospital simulation center. Her fundraising accomplishments include securing a $197.5 million investment from Purdue Pharma to create the National Center for Wellness and Recovery for Addiction Treatment and Research to address the national opioid addiction epidemic. With the common vision of making OSU's College of Osteopathic Medicine a top medical school in the nation, Dr. Shrum has collaborated with numerous organizations, businesses, and foundations, including the Cherokee Nation, by establishing the nation's first tribal-affiliated medical school in 2020. All these accomplishments, as well as many others, led the Regents of Oklahoma State University to appoint her as the 19th president and the first woman to lead Oklahoma State University, where she began her duties in July 2021. In the almost 3 years as president, Dr. Shrum has led OSU in many collaborative efforts, such as the establishment of the Ham Institute for American Energy at Oklahoma State, in partnership with the Harold Ham Foundation and Continental Resources. She also oversaw the creation of the Oklahoma Aerospace Institute for Research and Education, which elevates OSU's historic strength in aerospace engineering, flight training, and aeronautics. Even with Dr. Shrum's busy schedule, she still finds time to be active in a variety of charity and professional organizations, be a mom to 6 grown adult children, and the wife to OSU's first cowboy, Darren. Before we get started with our episode, we'll have a quick word from one of our major sponsors, REI Oklahoma. REI Oklahoma is proud to be part of the General Tommy Franks Leadership Institute and Museum in the production and distribution of these podcasts designed to inspire leaders and difference makers. At REI Oklahoma, we have been working with small business leaders, entrepreneurs, and people who are driven to succeed for years. Highly motivated people working to own their own businesses, live in their own homes, and make the world a better place since its beginning. REI Oklahoma has continued to identify hurdles and deliver holistic solutions to create job growth, and help neighborhoods thrive in both rural and urban communities. REI Oklahoma looks forward to visiting with you about helping your business and community grow. Visiting reiok.org or call 1 800 658 2823 to start the conversation.
The LaBarge family is a fourth-generation Oklahoma family. That may not sound like a long time, but our grandfathers were born here, within the Comanche Nation, before the land grant. We are the proudest sponsor of the Tommy Franks 4-Star Leadership Podcast. We hope listeners will heed the words of these distinguished men and women who have served our country at the highest levels and across all walks of life.
I am honored to have with us today the president of Oklahoma State University, Dr. Kayse Shrum. Dr. Shrum, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so you've been a part of Oklahoma State for a while now before you actually became the president a few years ago, and you're actually an Oklahoma girl also. Can you tell us about growing up in Oklahoma and what a leader looked like to you in rural Oklahoma?
Well, I loved growing up in rural Oklahoma. I enjoy this small town atmosphere. I have a very close extended family, so I was fortunate to, live close to my great grandparents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and so I, you know, well, kind of out in the country, and I felt very fortunate that we could go out and play in the fields and ride bikes, ride motorcycles, whatever we wanted to do, and come home when it was dark, and that's how I spent most of my time. When I think about really exposure to leaders at a young age, you know, most of, um, most of my childhood I played sports, so I was really involved in athletics, and I'd say kind of my first exposure to what I would say leaders were coaches or other members, someone I was on a team with that was a leader on the team. And then further it was in a small town. I think your principal is seen as a leader, the mayor, folks like that. I think those are your at least my first exposures to people who served as leaders.
Now that you're a seasoned leader in your own right and looking back, so do you take any of those values that you learned in your small town in Oklahoma and, do you take those values in your leadership that you do on a daily basis?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely feel like a lot of my leadership skills I developed over the years. One I would say just service to others. Um, growing up in a small town, saw a lot of people who were very involved and engaged in their community and wanted it to be a better place. And that idea that service to others is should be the driver of leadership. That it is serving others before yourself. I do that quite frequently. Learning to be a part of a team and being others, lifting others up, making easier for them to be successful. Is certainly something that through athletics, just the work ethic in it, and earning the respect of the people that you lead comes from caring about them, supporting them, understanding them. So listening and having a great deal of empathy to connect with people, I think is very important as a leader. And so I think the other thing I would say I learned is you know as a leader, it's your role to take responsibility regardless of the outcome. And when it's good, you praise others. When it's bad, you step up and take responsibility for it too. So a lot of those things I think and being exposed to people who are good leaders.
Hello, this is Dr. Jill Green with the General Tommy Franks Leadership Institute and Museum. I would like to tell you about one of our partner sponsors, Justin Krieger. He has worked as an independent insurance agent at Krieger Insurance Agency in his hometown of Hobart, Oklahoma since 1999. Justin is honored to help with our annual Celebration of Freedom event and has served on the board of directors for the General Tommy Franks Leadership Institute and Museum for many years. He is a fifth generation farmer and rancher in Kiowa County, where cattle, crops, and even insurance is sold with a handshake. Give him a call at 580-726-3076 or stop by the office and speak with Justin, Denise Reeves, or Wendy Block about your insurance needs. Krieger Insurance is thankful for their loyal customers and friends who have supported them through the years and look forward to earning your business as well. Justin feels honored to live in such a great country, and he is proud to be a sponsor of the Core Principles of Leadership podcast. Please enjoy the rest of this podcast experience brought to you by your friends at Krieger Insurance Agency. You were a practicing pediatrician before you actually entered the classroom and then your current roles here at OSU. So how did that path come about?
Well, it is an interesting path and probably not one that I had really envisioned for myself because, I really enjoyed practicing medicine. But when I was still in training in my pediatric residency, I had the opportunity to be the chief resident who was responsible for a lot of the education for students that were rotating on our our service, and so I really found that I enjoyed that aspect of my residency program with teaching others, and I also enjoyed research, and so I was practicing, and at that time I would take students to rotate with me in my private office, and there was an opportunity to come back to the university and join the faculty, and it really was something that I had enjoyed so much that I thought, this is a good opportunity for me to go back. Most of my teaching was in the clinic, so I was still seeing patients, and I just have students with me, and I had residents that we taught, and so that just added a lot of kind of joy to my day, honestly, and then the ability to do participate in research as well was very intriguing to me. So I joined the university to do that, and quickly had an opportunity not too long after coming back to the university to serve as the interim department chair, and I was really pretty, I would say, fairly young in my career in academia, so I really didn't realize that when they ask someone to be an interim, they're just wanting you to kind of sit in the chair, steer the ship forward, don't do anything, just hold the seat. But I have always just, I don't know if I'm a fixer, so if I see things can be better or opportunities, I just do it. And so I thought there were a lot of things that I could do to make the department work better as they were planning to bring in somebody new. It was like, well, I'll try to do the best I can do to make this a good place so that when they come in, they don't have a lot of problems, which ended up really, leading to me being, asked to, apply for the job. And so I, that's what kind of drew me into administration. And from there, it just it was like every time there was an opportunity that came open, and most of the time it was, would you consider, applying for this role? And always felt like, yes, I think there are things that we could be doing better and we should be doing better. And I would kind of move into that role. And so it just kind of transitioned that way where I slowly transitioned out of clinical practice. I actually still keep my board certification up and my license and all of that. So I still kind of keep my foot in that realm. But I came the dean of the medical school and spent time doing that, and really felt like my ability to make a difference, and have just that greater impact was through leadership. I mean, I could do more by training the next generation of physicians and creating access to healthcare than I could by just taking care of patients in my office.
Mhm.
And so that really has always been the driving factor for me. I, had an opportunity to serve on the governor's cabinet for Secretary of Science Innovation, and that was interesting because it was outside of the medical profession in some respects, and gave me the opportunity to go, meet with CEOs across many different industries and listen to them and find out ways that universities and industry could help drive the economy of the state. And of course, during that time, ended up in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, and I was the only physician on his cabinet. And he asked if I would kind of come in and serve on that response team. And so at that point, I spent about 6 months really outside of the academic medicine world. And kind of towards the end of that, President Hargis announced that he was going to retire. And I thought, and people would say, "Hey, are you going to be the president of Oklahoma State someday?" And I would just laugh, because I was very happy with what I was doing and very fulfilled and had a lot of things I still wanted to accomplish. But when that opportunity came around and I was nominated um, for that, I had to really consider, is that what I want to do? And I spent a lot of time being very thoughtful, prayerful about it, and realized that this is one of those moments in time that the opportunity is there. If you say no, you're saying no forever, likely.
Mhm.
And I felt like it was a challenge that I wanted to take, and something that I thought, hey, I can make a broader difference in the state. And so I just jumped in there. And I would say every time that an opportunity has come about, I would say there's never a clear moment where you think, oh, I am 100% prepared for this leadership role. Right?
Yes.
When people say that, I'm always questioning,
Yeah. Like,
yeah, like, do they fully understand what they're getting ready to do? Because in every leadership role I've ever taken, something has happened that you would never anticipate.
mhm.
So it is it. So I think people should never, wait on an opportunity. That if there's a desire there in a moment, you should step out of your comfort zone and do it. Just that's, I believe, where you grow the most in your
Right.
leadership and as a person, and you learn a lot about yourself. So I did. I applied, and here I am today. And again, there's always things that I'm learning about, and I do enjoy getting to learn about all sorts of different things. And that's the cool thing about a university, is there's so many people around you that are experts in their space and the
Mhm.
knowledge. And there are so many fascinating things that I would love to be able to spend a lot of time learning about, but I have to kind of move around, so
Yes.
I don't get to spend as much time in one area as I'd like sometimes.
Following a president like President Hargis, how have you been able to make this role your own?
Well, I would say, obviously, Burns is he's a special person, and has, a uniqueness all unto himself. And I worked for him for a long time. So I always told people, the one thing I know is, don't try to be funnier than Burns or wittier than Burns. He's just naturally funny. And I think that's probably, I mean, that's the lighter side of just, I think every individual person brings their own unique values to, and an interest to any role. And the most important thing is just, be authentic and be who you are. And I think that's what kind of, I don't know that I feel I'll ever be compared to Burns because, I have a lot of admiration for Burns, and I think his tenure here stands separately than mine. And, I think if you try to be the person that, precedes
Right.
you, or you compare yourself, it's much harder to, you know, make it your own. And
Right.
I often, have joked when people have asked me, how does it feel to, fill Burns' shoes? And I'll say, well, obviously I wear heels, so we don't even wear shoes, so it feels just fine. Um,
Yes.
but I think that's kind of, like I said, it's just be who you are, be authentic, and bring your own set of interests and views, and a great deal of respect for the person who preceded you. And it seems to make an easier path for just setting your own course.
When leading such a large entity like OSU, there's always going to come criticism in that role. So, how do you handle the critics?
Yeah, criticism is a tough thing. And I think every leader has to deal with that. Um, I, have over time kind of developed different views about criticism. I think, I always think about where it's coming from. Number one, and I've heard that saying over and over. If you wouldn't go ask that person for advice, then or you go, how much do you value the opinion?
Right.
Now, that being said, I think, you know, um, anyone who's in a leadership role obviously likes to, hold themselves to a high standard. And so sometimes hearing criticism is tough. Sometimes it is important to hear it.
Hmm.
I try not to take it too personally. I'll ask myself, like, obviously, where is that coming from? um if it's upsetting, why is that upsetting to me? you know um
Hmm.
Sometimes you hear something that maybe you feel is personal weakness, and that hits that point, and you have to recognize, okay, well, that's just an area where I struggle, and I just need to use that to get better at something. And then sometimes, maybe it's um a blind spot that you didn't think about and you can learn from. And then other times it's like, you can't be all things to all people. And sometimes you
Right.
just have to be comfortable enough to say, I feel like I'm comfortable with the decision I made, or, those are my values. It's okay. You don't have to like me. I mean, you can't, like, you're not everybody's cup of tea. That's okay too.
Yeah.
I just try to make sure that, I'm at least open to it. And, like I said, if it's somebody saying, "No, I don't like your shoes," or "I don't like whatever," it's like, well, you don't have to. You don't have to wear them, so that's okay. Um, but I try not to be so closed off from it, but I also try not to dwell on it, because I think that it's hard in today's time. You can receive a lot of criticism,
Hmm.
and even if the majority of people around you are not critical, those critical voices can just be so loud sometimes. And so, you just have to realize that everybody's got an opinion, that there are only a few people that are actually in the game. And, you know, it's easy to be the armchair quarterback, or it's easy to have the 2020. Just 2020 vision is great, but you just have to have a level of confidence that, you know, I'm being thoughtful with my decisions. I'm taking the opinions of others, and I want to go home at night and feel good about the decisions I made and how I treated people. Or, you may not like the outcome. We can't always control outcomes, but we can control how we behave. And if,
Right.
and if I do that, then I'm comfortable with, the fact that some people um, are not always going to be happy. But I also can look at it objectively and realize, well, maybe they have a point, maybe
Right.
it's good. It's okay. I'm not perfect. And, you just hope that people are gentle with their criticism. But I also think that's where you can kind of feel like, is this,
Right. How it's approached.
yeah. And that's the other thing I think, a question that I think about too is this intended to help or hurt? And
Correct.
I try to think about that myself. I think that's one thing I have learned through being in leadership roles. I'm less critical of others in leadership roles. I don't necessarily I have to agree with the decision, but if I have some, you know, some thought or something I want to share, I'll ask myself, is this is this helpful to them or hurtful to them? And, why would I share, why would I
Right.
compelled to share that? And so, I think thinking about motives of that is always important, but it's good for people around to feel okay with giving you negative feedback because we all need to hear that sometimes.
Right. So OSU, it's kind of like a nonprofit. You have a vision and a mission that you really have to keep towards. And so how do you, as the head of the school and answering to the regent, so how do you keep your team on track
Yeah.
with that mission and vision?
hmm Well, one of the things that I really try to do a lot is talk about the mission and the importance of it. Place a value on it and get people excited about it and let them see how their work makes a difference. And I think making your mission compelling and relevant is important. But I have a lot of very talented people that work for me, and they're all very busy. This is a big organization, and so we have a very clear strategy that we've put together because I think it's very important for people not only to know how or what you're trying to accomplish and why, but how you're going to get there, and
Right.
having buy-in from people on you know um, this is the strategy to get us here. And I think that is helpful in giving people a roadmap so they know the direction that you're going. You're really clear on that, and then setting goals every year based on here's what we want to accomplish, here's how we want to measure ourselves, and then empowering people and helping. I think that's a big part of my job, is helping remove obstacles, um,
Mhm.
and supporting people. Even, I've always felt like a lot of times when I, start something that's challenging, it's good for people to see that you're willing to do the work too, right?
Right.
And sometimes it's just getting in there with them, and working right alongside them. I think it shows that you value that work and being, a part of the team and realizing everybody has a strength that they bring to that. But it's always I think what's important is always pointing it back towards, this is the vision. The vision was created through the mission, and here's the strategy of how to get there. This is what we want to accomplish this year. What are your goals? And how are we measuring success? And that's really kind of the key to, a large organization, being able to move forward together and to accomplish things. It's you have to have a lot of people buying in, excited about what you're doing, and feeling supported.
With all those projects that OSU tackles on a yearly basis, what strategies have you found that are most effective? I mean, to be able to prioritize, there's a myriad of tasks that go on with those on a daily basis. And how do you prioritize what really needs to get done?
Yeah. I think for me, I try to think every day. So there are things that are on my calendar, like out 6 months, right? Uh, but it really is being very thoughtful about number one, where is my time best spent? What most moves the needle for the university, and prioritizing that way. And some days things happen, and there are multiple things that are important, or there's a crisis, and it really is thinking through, okay, who um, if this is really really important to the university, then that requires my attention in that moment. And sometimes it's also thinking through the message it sends if you're there as the leader. And
Right.
sometimes it's not necessarily this is the priority that moves the university in the long run, but sometimes it's about the culture and the value of the university, and what do you want to display that day as the leader. And
Right.
that's important. Where you spend your time is important, and how you value people is important too, because that's as much a part of the culture of an organization as culture is important to success. It doesn't, you can't have a bad culture and not value people. I mean, I guess you could and be successful. It's not likely.
No.
So it's a balancing to me of the goals, accomplishing the goals, and utilizing my team right, and their talents, and trusting them. You have to trust your team because you're only one person. The balancing is, what message are you sending with either your absence or your presence at any given moment in time. So it is something that takes a lot of time, and some days I feel like I do good at it. Other days, you're like, can I clone myself?
Yeah.
There's just not enough hours in the day. But again, I think that's where developing a very strong leadership team pays off, where you trust the people, they trust you. Um, they're bought into accomplishing what needs to be accomplished for the university, and you know, you can rely on them in the moments where you can't be. But I think also, you know, when I say what moves the university forward the most, that also is, through the lens of who do we serve, and what's our purpose, and making sure that the things that move the university forward are keeping our students and others that we serve in the forefront. I think that helps to make those decisions too. Every once in a while, pausing and saying, okay, what's our real purpose? Because you can get really tied up in, like, oh,
Yes.
hey, I want this ranking, or I want, you know, this award, or whatever, if it's personal or it's for the organization. But, you can kind of get caught up into that, but taking a pause to say, okay, what's our true purpose? Who do we
Right.
serve? And how do we serve them the very best? And that's what makes, you know, these particular things important in a given day. And I also think that's also, how I try to divide up my time sometimes based on, you know, really, the how we're serving our constituents.
Yeah. So, and you talked about your team and the experts that you have to have that surround you. So, what is one of the most important qualities you look for when you're bringing someone onto your team?
Well, at number one, I think they, need to be a cultural fit and buy into the mission of the organization. Because if they don't do that, it won't matter how, talented they are in their job. And so I think I look at, values, culture, fit, um, and, how if they align with the mission. And then, I really do try to think about those that are really close to, that I work very closely with. And if I think I have a weakness, I want to hire somebody that's really strong
Right.
that balances me. And I also think, again, the personal values are important to me because, you know, I know I have to trust these people. They have to work hard. I want them to make great decisions and value what we're working on every day. And so I think it's a mix of, you know, their definitely their personal values and their fit with the organization and their level of skill. And, sometimes, I mean, I think that, you know, when I say that, it sounds like, well, you want everybody that's your best friend. No,
No.
doesn't matter to me. Like, again, I have said I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Um, I have some people that, I work with that, we probably wouldn't hang out outside of work or whatever, but I have a great deal of respect for them
Hmm.
because what they bring every day and they're talented people. And you don't want always like-minded people around you or people who have like personalities.
Right.
It balances out when you don't have that around you, and it's always good. And I try to be more of a listener in my leadership meetings than a talker because I discovered a long time ago that if the if the boss says something very matter of fact, it's really hard to get people to talk about their opinions.
Hmm.
And so, like I said, I think you need to have people around that have different perspectives, different backgrounds, different skill sets. But, the most important thing to me is, they working hard, are they a cultural fit, and do they, share the values that I want in team members. And other than that, I think the differences are that you can get in the different viewpoints to make you a better organization.
There's all kinds of different leaders, but you seem to be a leader that is very visible around campus and in the community and at events. So, why do you think that is an important aspect of leadership?
Well, for me, as I was saying, I try to first think of who are the people that we serve, and our students, our alumni, Oklahomans. If you don't really have a good handle on the people that you serve, I don't know how you know how to do that. Um, from a leadership perspective, I feel that way. And I also just, to me, I do feel more as, someone who is in leadership to serve others. And I just get a lot of pleasure out of, interacting and
Yeah.
meeting students and hearing what they're doing and, having them feel comfortable approaching me and just having those little moments. Because you know, my life was really changed by a professor asking me if I was going to go to medical school. It was a short little conversation. Told he said, "You have the highest grade in my class. I think you should consider this." And it it was life changing because I think it when you're young or even in your career at times, having somebody you respect take a few moments and encourage you or say, "Man, I think you can do that." Um, it's very powerful. It's empowering, and it's I don't know. It's a way that I feel like I can give back if I'm have the opportunity to give a smile or sit and talk or just be a part of the things that are happening in Oklahoma State. I think it gives me energy by doing that, and it keeps my purpose at the forefront of my mind. You know,
Yes. So, you talked early on that you have a very small, supportive family. And with leaders, sometimes we can just get engrossed in, our work life. And how do you find and the time and the priority to have a good work life, outside of what you're doing at the university? How do you get that blend?
That is a really big, challenge. And every time I've taken a new role, it requires me to be very thoughtful. And I always find that I'm learning all over again how to do that. And what I have learned through the years is whatever's I'm going to live by my calendar. I'm really busy. I have people in the office that put things manage my calendar. Um, if I don't schedule time on the calendar for myself, for my family, even down to, I'm going to exercise. I sit at the very beginning of the week and I write out, here's the days I'm going to exercise. And, because if I don't, those are afterthoughts. And it's very easy in in a position where a lot of people want your attention or need your attention, because there are things you have to do, there are things you want to do that are just fun, and then there are the people who um, have been your lifelong friends, your family that love you. All those people will demand less of your time. They are always, well, you're so busy, we don't want to bother you.
Right.
That they can quickly get pushed out of your life if you're constantly thinking about it. And I remember, like, the first semester I was here, um, I woke up my oldest son's birthday. I knew it was his birthday, but something happened, and the whole day just took off. And I went to bed that night. I just got so distracted, and if obviously, like, it probably bothered me way, way more than it bothered them. Because I always say, they're young adults. It's not like they want to spend their whole birthday with their mom.
Right.
I think that they do, but they don't. But so now, it's on my calendar. I block out their birthdays. I know I know that I am not going to spend the whole day with them. But my calendar is open so that they're prioritized that day, whatever time they have to spend with me. I think it just the busier you are, the more intentional you have to be. And it's hard. It's hard to you know, I think as a working mother, I have 6 kids. I, I've had a busy career. My husband, we've he had his professional career, and then he kind of put that to the side, and he's been supportive and had more flexible, owned his own businesses or whatever, so he could support me and be there for our kids if I couldn't be there. But I think you learn that the thing I will always give 100% or more to my work or to my kids and my family. Um, the one thing that you have to really pay attention to is yourself,
Yes.
because you can't, and that's what will happen to me. Sometimes I have to be very aware, like, oh, you know, I'm getting I notice people are irritating me, and it's like, okay, everyone is not irritating.
Yeah.
Going on with me? I perhaps need a break.
Yeah.
I need to get away. I need a moment or whatever that is. And even to the point of, it's when you work a job that's, every day of the week and it starts early in the morning and at night, it's okay to schedule time for yourself
Yeah.
on your calendar and don't be ashamed of it. Right.
Yeah.
And
I mean, yeah, that's exactly what we tell our students that come in. I mean, they're such focused young individuals and they are active in so many different things. And we tell them, I mean, you don't have to be the head of every organization that you want to be. You have to take care of yourself. At that early age, there's going to be so much burnout that you have to take care of yourself. Put yourself forward every once in a while.
Exactly. And sometimes it's just, um, whatever that is, making sure you're exercising, or there's a day where you just do nothing,
Yeah.
that is okay. And I think type A personalities, people who are very successful, um, you know, you think, well, if I'm doing this for an hour, I could be accomplished.
Yes, I could be doing something, yeah, productive.
And, but you also have to realize when is, you know, what, just do well what you're doing. And, you know, what you can do is enough. You don't have, there's not always one more thing to accomplish. You're not missing out on an accomplishment. That's what I would say to younger folks is, look, there is a point that it's enough. And when it's taking a toll on you, it's too much.
Yes.
And just, being, I think the older I've gotten, the more I've realized, um, I have to do that, right? I have to make sure that I sleep. I have to, you know, that is important sometimes. Exercise is important to me. Spending time, out in the country by myself sometimes is, good for me. So going to church, just whatever that is for you as a person. Um, if your schedule is not reflecting your priorities, you're not going to you're going to have regrets. And
Yes.
one thing I do not, I try to keep in mind, um, is being mindful of, what I'm doing every day, and am I going to regret not having done something? And most of the time, if I've had a moment where it's like, okay, I'm torn between something that needs to be done for work and something that, my kids might want me at, or my parents or whatever. I will ask myself, because I sometimes need to give myself permission to not be working. In 10 years, who is going to remember where I was or wasn't?
Right.
And majority of the time, it will be, a family member or whatever. And once I've determined that, there's no guilt. So that's how I do it, is when I look back, who's going to remember this and who's not? And if I think 10 years from now, this person's going to remember that you were not there, then I will regret that someday. And so I just give myself permission to, and I don't apologize, and I don't feel bad about it.
Mhm. There's most things can wait till the next day. So when you're out talking to young leaders, do you have any resources that you suggest for them to, are there any books or blogs that you've liked to listen to, or podcasts that you've listened to that?
More of a book person. I'm kind of old fashioned a little bit like that. So, I think John Maxwell has really good books. Stephen Covey, his, Seven
Yes.
Habits of Highly Effective Leaders. Um, Another one I think is a really, I just think it has some good things in it. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Those are probably some of the books that, I think I've read, or authors, they have more than just the books that I've, mentioned. I think those are good authors to read. I'm also, um, there's books you can read, you can do podcasts, but the one thing that I have always done, and I encourage people to do, is watch the people who are around you. And in any given circumstance, I started this when I was, I don't know, probably in athletics, but it carried on to medical school and on and on. But, you know, anyone that I was around, I would just observe what are the things that I like about this. If I had a lot of respect for them, it was like, well, what is it that you respect? What is it that you like about them? And then, in circumstances, there's also opportunities to say to yourself, I'm, giving that kind of feedback to other people, but what would I have done differently in that circumstance? Or how did that leader or that person perform? And what was good I learned, and what did I learn I wouldn't want to do?
Right.
Just be a life learner and watch the people around you, because I think in real life circumstances, you can learn a whole lot by just observing and paying attention to how those people made you feel, you know, in any given moment. And was that good or was that bad? Was the outcome good or was the outcome bad? You can learn a lot from, just who you associate with.
That is so true. So we always ask our podcast guest if this is the same question we ask everyone. So if you could give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would it be?
I would probably say number one, all those people that you think have it together, who were born for success, had a similar journey than you. Like, relax, lean into who you are, be who you are. That gets you a lot further in life. And secondly, I would say it's good to set goals and have a destination, but enjoy the journey and learn from the journey. And the achievement is not always the best part. It's good, but there are some great things when you fail, and that's okay.
Yeah, those lessons along the way are really what make you the person that you're going to be.
They do. And some of the I don't know, some of the wisest people that I've met um, gained that wisdom because they weren't always successful.
Right.
I mean, and that's true. Successful people have failed. There's no way around it, um, and that's okay. And I think when you're young and 18, and you have great aspirations for your life, being fearful of failure holds you back.
Yes.
I mean, I tell everybody I had this great moment with Garth Brooks was here on campus, and he had all the students in the room. And one of the students said, how do you make it in Nashville? All the talent. How do you make it in Nashville? And he said, well, what's your talent? And he said, well, I think I'm a good singer. And he said, okay, well, sing. And the kid started singing, which it was amazing. And he said, here's the lesson I want you to learn from that. It's 5 seconds of courage. No matter what it is, find 5 seconds of courage. And that's 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 the key to success, because being fearful holds you back,
Yes.
and it's like you never succeed if you don't try. You are going to fail, but eventually you will succeed if you just keep putting yourself out there.
Yeah. So, and that's what we tell our students, because some of them, they've not experienced that first failure yet. They're just so, talented and focused. But we explain to them, it's how you hold yourself and what you do after that first failure that is going to set you onto your path.
It's so true. And when I first started taking, bigger leadership roles, I really like it. It was so, I felt like my job was to make sure nothing, went wrong. Everything went right. And, that is your job. But the truth is that's not life. So it, what's really important is, yes, you're mindful to make sure you're looking around the corner and that things are going well. But when it isn't going well, how do you perform and how do you act?
Right.
That is, I think the true measure of success is you are going to fail. And every time there's been an opportunity, and I think this is at least, me, I have always, set high expectations, and putting yourself out there when you want something really bad and you try, it's really, hard when you fail. And so that, what do people, some people are concerned about, well, what do people think about me? What if, this or that? And that can hold you back, but it really
Hmm.
is. I think when Garth said that, and I think back, across times where, I have found that the more you step outside of your comfort zone, it's not that you're always going to be comfortable. You're just more comfortable being outside of your comfort zone.
Right.
And that's where you're trying to get to, because that's where your opportunities are. And that's like the growth moments are not always from success. The growth moments are from failure.
Hmm.
And, it actually, if you see it as an opportunity to get better, it's it's really it's really builds your confidence. Now, if you see it as a failure and that's the final, it kills your confidence.
Yeah. You're done. Yeah. It just,
Every challenge can be viewed as an opportunity to get better.
yeah.
And so just training your mind to do that and doing it multiple times, um, over and over, that's, where you get the confidence. So, and more times than not, you'll be successful.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for all your words of wisdom today and sitting down with us. I've really enjoyed our time, and you're a valuable leader for Oklahoma State and our state in itself. So we appreciate what you're doing and the vision that you have.
Thank you for having me. And I'm, honored to be able to share with you today.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. And I know your schedule is busy and you have priorities. So we appreciate your time. And that was all.
Okay. Thank you very much. It was nice to meet you.
Thank you again to REI Oklahoma for making this podcast possible. For nearly 40 years, the board, staff, patrons, and supporters of the nonprofit economic development REI Oklahoma have been committed to expanding Oklahoma's economic prosperity, earning the reputation of being one of the most comprehensive economic development organizations in the country. Business lines, training workshops, business consulting, and networking opportunities, as well as technical assistance and even commercial business space, are made available to Oklahoma entrepreneurs and small businesses. For low and moderate income individuals and families, down payment and or closing cost assistance is offered. Learn more at reiok.org. On behalf of the 4-Star Leadership with General Tommy Franks team, I'm your host, Dr. Jill Green, and this has been the Core Principles of Leadership with General Tommy Franks podcast. Now it's your turn, podcast listeners. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what you think of this episode and all our other episodes. Share this podcast with all the leaders and up-and-coming leaders in your circles. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast listening platform, and don't forget to mark your calendars the last Friday of each month for another inspiring episode. So for now, as General Franks always says, go be feisty.